Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome. Today, Team BLBA is excited, really excited. We are excited for three reasons. First reason, not one, but two excellencies are joining this webinar. We have His Excellency Jean-Claude Kugener, Ambassador of Luxembourg to India, and His Excellency François Delhaye, Ambassador of Belgium to India. Thanks for joining us. Ambassador Kugener, Mrs. Jenny from Luxinnovation, her team, and the panelists have put in a lot of hard work to prepare the session. You will be able to learn more about a technology that will reshape the financial services landscape of tomorrow. While Luxembourg, you might think, it's a leading financial center in the world and the private banking hub in the Eurozone. Luxembourg is at the forefront of research and innovation in the field of financial technologies. Second reason why we are so excited today. You want to know more about FinTech, isn't it? Well, you are here at the right place. We have three amazing panelists who are experts in their field. You will sit on the edge of your seat to know more and to hear every word they are saying. Third and last reason why we are excited today. We always like to work and we appreciate working with other chambers. We have joined hands with the Indo-Dutch chamber in the past, but today we are happy and grateful to join hands with our friends from Mumbai, IBLCCI, the Indo-Belgian-Luxembourg Chamber of Commerce. We share the same values, promoting business between India, Belgium, and Luxembourg. I hope that is the start of many interactions between our two chambers. Thank you, Mr. Ignace, for accepting our invitation. In September 2018, Ambassador Kugener presented his credentials to the President of India. And since then, BLBA and the Embassy have been working closely together to promote trade between India and Luxembourg. Your Excellency, it's a real pleasure working with you and your team. May I request you to give the opening remarks? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice President. Thank you, President, as well of the Belgium-Luxembourg Business Association. I greet as well the colleague in Mumbai of the Indo-Belgian-Luxembourg Chamber of Commerce. Very happy to see you all, and of course the colleagues in Luxembourg at Luxembourg for Finance and the Luxembourg House of FinTech, and Luxinnovation, who I thank as well very dearly for organizing all of this together with Ignace and the entire BLBA team. Extremely happy that we could organize this, and that it's a nice way as well to present ourselves, to see each other, to talk to each other. We, as you rightly say, I presented my credentials exactly 2 years ago. I arrived in India on the 3rd of September. And since then, I see that not because of me, but because of the historic relations and the deep and strong relations Luxembourg has with India. And these relations are ever increasing. We are in the Indian statistics, the last Indian statistics puts Luxembourg 15th foreign direct investor in India. We have, 2 years ago, we have ranked 16th. We have, as many of you know, we are in our 72nd year of bilateral relations, historic relations which go back to Mumbai, where we have, in those days, Bombay, where we have created a first vice consulate in 1929, which was all about steel in those days. And steel is, of course, one of the big part of the relations over the last decades. It started with steel, but it developed all our companies, well, you name it, ArcelorMittal, you all know, the headquartered in Luxembourg, but also Paul Wirth, who is very active since 26 years here in India, some other related companies. We have a large group of companies, very diversified, who are working in automotive, i.e. in Pune, Saratitsit, who are in West Bengal. It goes from the satellites, Société Européenne des Satellites, the world leader in operational satellites, who have 5 satellites over India. We are currently working on agreements with the Indian government here. And then, of course, the financial relations, and there I leave the 2 colleagues in Luxembourg the word, and to further strengthen and highlight our relations in these fields and what we are doing in Luxembourg in FinTech, among others. But here in India, the stock exchanges, both our stock exchanges, work together since more than 20 years. Luxembourg was the 2nd country in the world to create masala bonds in 2008. And there's a large number of Indian companies and group of companies and conglomerates who have their GDRs at the stock exchange. And of course, some of you know as well that Luxembourg created the first green exchange in 2016 after the Paris COP agreement. And this green exchange is so successful that more than half of all the bonds, green bonds, are today in Luxembourg. It's a relationship which is very diversified, very deep. It goes into many areas. As I highlighted only a few. I could fill your whole and entire lunchtime with talking about our relations. But I want to leave the floor to the colleagues. I see on my side, we became last year the #1 consulate in the world for Schengen visas, because the numbers are increasing. I see it in the community in Luxembourg. The Indian community ranks 14th today in the number of Indians working and living in Luxembourg. 5 years ago, the community ranked 27th. So you see with the sheer increase in numbers over the last 5 years. Some companies, even they doubled in size over the last years. We see it in the visas. With the lockdown, the embassy is semi-closed. We work on a rotation. And the consulate, of course, is closed as well. But we have delivered long-term Schengen visas for all the residency permit holders who live and work in Luxembourg. And until now, over the last 3 weeks, we have delivered in total 145 visas. This is a sign which is a lot linked to Amazon, European headquarters in Luxembourg, or Tata Consultancy, very present in Luxembourg, but also many other companies from Ferrero who have their European headquarters, but who have a big presence in India, of course. And these people travel to Luxembourg and work there for a longer period for a project. Other companies in Cordis, etc., Temenos, who are there, they go for certain projects. So this was just a small brief on our bilateral relations, and on. I'm extremely happy that I see my colleagues at Luxembourg for Finance and Luxembourg House of FinTech. I'm very happy to meet the chairman of the head of CommSol, and happy to listen to you, and a pleasure being together with you this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Your Excellency. Always a pleasure to listen to you and to learn from you. And I think what you've just said in few words about the increasing relationship, it's really very heartwarming to hear it. And I think your leadership has been extremely crucial to act as a bridge for the great furtherance of the relationship between India and Luxembourg. A little bit about BLBA before I formally get into the introduction of the speakers. The BLBA came into existence in the year 1997. This is a vibrant, interactive platform headquartered in Delhi. The main objectives is advocacy, espousing of business issues of contemporary interest, which are relevant for members of the Indian, the Belgian, and the Luxembourg business community, who are our members here. As I just mentioned before the start of the event, in spite of the fact that our normal platform has been more a physical meeting platform, wherein we typically do it in a staff property over either a lunch or a dinner or a cup of tea or coffee. But because of the coronavirus crisis, it's been a forced kind of an isolation, and I think it's very important from a health point of view. But we have kept the interaction going through a series of webinars, whether it's on intellectual property or contract liquidity management, motivation, business economics, issues related to the real interest, real estate, which are important, for our members. Today, we are particularly pleased and honored to collaborate with IBLCCI in Mumbai with Ignace and his chamber, and to bring to you a fantastic set of speakers, as Ignace had mentioned. But before I just mention about the speakers, I must place on records our grateful thanks to not only His Excellency Jean-Claude Kugener, but also to Jenny Hallen-Hedberg from Luxinnovation, because the ambassador had put us in touch with Jenny, and then Jenny had in turn taken it further to contact with Philipp, with Siddharth, and with Alex, of course, to put us in touch and then to take it on from there. So we are extremely grateful and thankful to Jenny and to the ambassador, of course. And I also wish to place on record our appreciation for the presence of Mr. Francois Delvoye, the ambassador of Belgium to India. The great set of speakers that we have that Ignace mentioned on a subject which is, I think, fast emerging as the next economic powerhouse for the world, or the economic driver, which is FinTech, and one in which obviously Luxembourg is a world leader. So we have today the three speakers with us. What I will do is, in the format, if it is okay for everyone, is that I will introduce Philipp first, and then Philipp can take on the subject that Philipp is going to speak on. After that, I will introduce Alex, and then Alex will speak, and then finally with Siddharth, and Siddharth will speak. And once we've finished with the individual part of speaking, we will discuss it more in a panel format on the Q&A part, where I have already some questions which we will moderate it from the audience, as well as some questions which in general would be of importance to the audience. So I start with Philipp, and very happy to see you, Philipp. And Philipp is the Deputy CEO of Luxembourg for Finance, the agency for the development of the Luxembourg Financial Center. He represents LFF as a member of board of directors of Luxembourg's Sustainable Financial Initiative. And also he represents LuxFlag, which is the Luxembourg Finance labeling agency. Philipp holds the chairmanship of the management committee of Stiftung Pflanzen für Menschen, that is a foundation which supports non-profit initiatives on the healthcare and climate change. And that's an extremely noble thing, Philipp, you do. It's a subject that's also very close to my heart also. Philipp has served in the past as head of communications of the Luxembourg Bankers Association. And the topic that Philipp will talk about is the introduction to the Luxembourg financial industry. So over to you, Philipp, please.
Thank you, Excellencies, dear Chairman, dear friends from India, in India, and I saw that we have some Indian colleagues and friends from Luxembourg too. So I'm very pleased to be here. Thanks to BLBA for organizing this event, and also to Luxinnovation for the kind organization. As you mentioned, I'm representing Luxembourg for Finance, which has its mission to not only connect investors to international markets, but also to put Luxembourg on the map and explain what we do and who we are. Before I kick off, so I just put on a tie today to make it clear that I'm representing the traditional financial center in Luxembourg, and that my colleague Alex, who doesn't wear a tie, he's the FinTech guy. So he's the representative of the innovative part of the Luxembourg Financial Center, so that there can be no misunderstanding. So what do we do? What are we good at? Why do we exist? It's questions that we often come across, and I will start by explaining you a little bit what we are doing, and to come then to why we are doing it. So today, the Luxembourg Financial Center is an international financial center with multi-jurisdictional expertise in asset management, in banking, in the international insurance business, and in capital markets. We are second to the US in the world when it comes to asset management, and we have currently 4.7 trillion euros assets under management. We host little more than 500 asset managers in Luxembourg, and 62% roughly of the cross-border funds are Luxembourgish funds. In the banking industry, we have around 125 international banks located in Luxembourg who do, besides retail banking, corporate banking, depository banking. And in the insurance business, we have a big chunk of the insurance business, which is international life insurance business, but also due to Brexit, more and more non-life insurance business. Capital markets, very important to us. Ambassador Kugener mentioned it earlier on. We have the Luxembourg Stock Exchange, who has more than 20 years of relationship with India already, who is established since 1929 in Luxembourg, and who is one of the leading bond emission exchange in the world, and has gained tremendously of reputation because launching in 2016 the Luxembourg Green Exchange, as Ambassador Kugener also mentioned, listing today more than half of sustainable bonds worldwide. So what makes us, let's say, not unique, but what makes us different is that, first of all, we have always been an international oriented financial center. We consider to be our domestic market the common EU market, European Union market, with its currently 515 million consumers. We have always been watching and considering this as our domestic market, contrary to other financial centers who consider their home market as their domestic market. So we have always been seeing and leading and developing our business through this international lens. So why have we been always this international focused financial center? Well, first of all, we are very international. 47% of our population are foreigners. And we have growing international communities. The Indian communities is a growing community in Luxembourg. And we have 3 official languages. In Luxembourg, on average, people speak 3.7 languages. So we have, thanks to this representation of more than 170 nationalities in Luxembourg, the possibility to understand different cultures, which is very important when it comes to international business. Another very important element in doing international finance and international business is the stability in Luxembourg. We have political stability, we have social stability, and most important of all, we have economic stability. And this is reflected through the AAA. We have been attributed from the main agencies around the world. A third element I would mention why we are still on the map and we are gaining on reputation is that we are very innovation driven, which is very important. We have always been talking for a long time now about FinTech, and Alex will focus on this particular side and the importance of FinTech when it comes to the development of finance in general. but we have always been innovative in other domains. We have started with the Eurobonds in the 60s. I unfortunately don't have the time to go into the detail, but we have started early in the 80s with the funds business, where we have been kind of innovating too, and actually anticipating European legislation, and which is very important because, as you might know, as member of the European Union, Luxembourg has passporting rights. So businesses out of Luxembourg can conduct their business European-wide because Luxembourg is a member of the European Union, which is a very important element to our development. Coming back to the innovation part, so FinTech is a very innovative sector in Luxembourg, but we are also innovating in the area of sustainable finance. Not later than last week, for instance, Luxembourg was among the first countries in the European Union who issued a framework for sustainable funds. And not later than yesterday, Luxembourg placed a sovereign bond which fulfills this criteria on the international markets. So we pride ourselves to really want to be a driver in the world for putting sustainable finance forward. So this is, in a nutshell, how you could describe the success of Luxembourg. Another important element, of course, is also that we have a spirit of cooperation. You have here the Luxembourg House of Financial Technology, you have Luxinnovation, we have our networks of ambassadors and international representations, and we all work together, which is a very, very important element for a small country that wants to succeed. And last thing allow me to mention is that when it comes to finance, people very soon start of talking about protection and consumer protection and security. And in Luxembourg, we can pride ourselves that we have a very stringent and very well executing financial supervisor, which is an element which is very important if you want to play in the Champions League of international financial centers. And I think I could go on for a long time now, but I give you back the word, Rajiv, and I will be glad to answer any questions you might have about the financial center afterwards.
Thank you so much, Philipp. Thank you. That was really very nice of you. Our second speaker is Alex Panican. And Alex is, one can talk a lot about Alex Panican because he is a serial entrepreneur with plus 10 years of experience as business strategy, digital transformation, innovation. He's the head of partnership and ecosystems at the Luxembourg House of Financial Technology, which is LhoFT, which aims to foster innovation and develop solutions that shape the future of financial services. LhoFT aims to connect and create value for the entire Luxembourg FinTech ecosystem, which means the financial institutions, the IT industry, the research and academia, and also even the regulatory and the public authorities pitching. Alex, on top of that, is also a professor in business strategy and digital marketing. And the topic that Alex will first speak before we have the later on discussion is LhoFT and the FinTech ecosystem in Luxembourg. Alex, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, Your Excellency. Thank you for having me on this panel. I'm going to be very short because the goal is to have a conversation during the panel. So the LhoFT stands for the Luxembourg House of Financial Technologies. It's an idea that emerged in the brain of our finance minister, Mr. Pierre Gramegna, who 4 years ago he had this vision of having a FinTech hub, an incubator, but not just to help FinTechs, but also to help the financial industry. And he mandated the CEO of Luxembourg for Finance, Nicolas Makel, to create the LhoFT. So Luxembourg for Finance is a bit our father. So Philipp, it's good to have you on the panel. So yeah, so we do incubation. We have 78 fintechs that we incubate at the LhoFT. I think just 10 of them are from Luxembourg. All of the others are international. Just to show you how international we are, we have fintechs from Japan, from China, from Russia, from Canada, from South Africa. I will mention that a bit later on the panel. We do incubation, we do acceleration. So we take early stage fintechs, we help them develop the business in Luxembourg, but also all over Europe. We work with different incubators in Europe, 14 of them. So we help them connect with the clients, with the investors, with the research centers, with institutions like Luxembourg for finance, and of course with our partners. So the LhoFT is a foundation. We are not for profit, and we are public-private partnership. This is quite unique in Luxembourg. We like public and private partnerships. So we have the Ministry of Finance, Luxembourg for Finance, the Ministry of Economy, and we also have 20 plus private partners on the other side. So those private partners are engaging and working with the fintechs we support. But see the LhoFT as the facilitator for you to run your business all over Europe in the best and most efficient way. So that's it for me. I've been very brief because the goal is to maybe engage on the panel. So please feel free already. I don't know, Rajiv, if I can mention that, maybe drop some question during on the chat over there.
Yes.
So we can see.
Thank you, Alex. We could do that, of course, and we're going to talk a little bit more in details further in our discussion. The final speaker we have is from our set of experts today is Siddharth Karmakar. Siddharth is a qualified chartered accountant and an alumni of the world famous IIM Ahmedabad. With over 18 years of experience in financial services industry, Siddharth has served with American Express, with HSBC, with Societe Generale, on the corporate, on the investment side, banking, and also with JP Morgan on the treasury side. He led the COO's office at Edelweiss Securities, which is very well known, before joining CommSol as its associate director and the head for India operations. Siddharth is a recipient of numerous awards and has earned a very solid reputation of being very performance driven and with a lot of expertise in analyzing and implementing strategies and practices to increase the overall efficiency and financial performance. Siddharth, that already sounds very, very impressive. So the floor is all yours to talk about CommSol and in specific, with the specificity on the Indian fintech ecosystem. And of course, we'll have the details later. Please.
Sure. So thank you very much, Rajiv, and many thanks, Your Excellencies, from Luxembourg, the ambassador to India, from Belgium. Would also like to thank the BLBA, also the IBLCCI for having us here and giving us the opportunity to share our views as CommSol. And I'll give you a brief about what we are doing, who we are, and what is the purpose for us to have CommSol in first place. Let me begin by saying that at CommSol, we strongly believe in cross-border partnerships. And that's the premise on which we started off back in UK. We've got over 150 plus years as a collective experience in banking and financial domain. In Europe, we've been in Luxembourg for over 20 plus years. We continue the presence there very strongly, working with some of our clients in Luxembourg as well as in London. In India, we recently started with me getting on board to look at how we could develop a forum and a format for cross-border partnerships, look at leveraging some of the best practices which are already there in the developed economies and leveraging and bringing them to India. Likewise, how we could take the Indian INC and help the Indian INC get access to the wider capital markets, the asset management industry, be it asset servicing industry. And these are the areas that we all understand. We understand the regulations, we understand the local regulations, and FinTech as a subject is very close to us because that's the industry which is disrupting a lot of financial services which have been either in banking segment or in asset management or in wealth management. If you talk of the payments industry, you talk of the lending industry, and we'll talk about the statistics as well, and where India has been, the growth of India, where India stands right now, and how we look at partnering with Luxembourg. We are a very proud member of the LhoFT, and would like to thank Alex for giving us the chance to have this kind of a conversation. So thank you very much, Alex. And to Philipp for encouraging us to be participating in these kind of formats as well. So with that, I would just like to also mention the fact that while we are situated in Europe and we've got a presence there working with our clients, some of them are tier 1 banks, tier 1 asset management companies which are present across the globe. We are working very, very actively with them. We are trying to spread our presence in Asia, starting with India, moving on to a bit of East, onto Hong Kong, Singapore. We are also looking at spreading ourselves into the Middle East in sometime in future. So at this point of time, the focus is primarily on the continental Europe with our base in Luxembourg, because we're there for 20 plus years. In UK, we've been there. The CEO of our business has been with JP Morgan, and he was the head of global transformation at JP Morgan in his past. So we've got those strong relationships. We've got a deeper relationship with some of the big players in the industry, and that's the gravitas that we bring. That's the kind of network we bring for our clients that they can leverage on and back of us. So on back of that, let me begin by saying that India, from where it was back in pre-global financial crisis days to post-global financial crisis days, you'll see a spurt in the kind of development that has happened in this region. So if you look at the certain policies of what it's called as the India Stack, which began back in 2008, 2009, and with growth in India Stack, we saw certain policies and framework which was put by the government in India through the PMJDY as a policy. We saw the financial inclusion grow massively from a 35% to over 80% now in the last 1 decade. So we've seen a larger gamut of Indians coming into the financial ambit, coming into the overall financial economy, which was not the case. And that has given a rise in financial technology driven, finance driven asset management, which is still not really that massive as Philipp had mentioned, which is prevalent in Luxembourg. And it's not wrong to state that we have less than 6% of the overall population having access to capital markets. So you can very well imagine the kind of potential that we have as a nation to grow from here in the asset management sector, for us to grow on the insurance sector with InsurTech. And I'll give and share some of the numbers that I have in front of me. But the UIDAI as a policy of the government, that has enabled a lot of change, a lot of success stories that we can talk about in India. So what's next for us? Well, there are two elements that are being pushed by the local regulators. They have been pushed by the government as well in terms of blockchain technology and looking at some of the consent and data privacy to be incorporated as the next wave within the unified payments interface, on back of some of the innovation journey which is also being pushed by the Central Court of India as well. One thing which certainly is worth noticing is that there is a lot of mindset change that is happening in India as I speak. A lot of changes in the way the governance is being put in place. We've seen the impact of demonetization, which happened back in 2016. That has given rise to a lot of investments coming into India. I'm talking of close to around 2,170 plus fintechs which exist on a very ballpark high level numbers which exist in India. And these are numbers as of 31st of August, and probably might change in the near course as we talk of post-corona events and post-corona impact on the overall sector and overall the economy. But that's where we are. From a viewpoint of fintech as such, we could classify them into 5 big buckets. You talk of the payments industry, you talk of the lendtech and the lending industry. We are looking at wealth tech industry and insurtech industry. The fifth one, which is not that mature as such in India, is the neo-banking, which we are seeing as a company. We are talking to a few of our potential partners and clients in Singapore and Hong Kong that have seen adoption of neo-banking. We also help as part of our overall service offering to resource augment from the UK and from Europe the right talent. And we are talking of some of the firms that we are already partnering and we are advising on blockchain technology like the Funds TLT in Luxembourg. We are very happy and very proud to be part of the organization on the advisory to Funds TLT. And that's a technology that, you know, we often talk in our regular calls that that's the kind of technology we need in India. That's a need of the hour. And probably that's going to take India to a very different level, the knowledge to a very different level, the intelligence and innovation to the very different level. And with that, I would want to stop. I'm conscious of the time and leave it for rest of the panel to discuss. And I can talk of numbers, go on and on for next 2 hours, but in the interest of time, I would stop here and leave it, Rajiv, for you and for the moderator to have any questions for me.
Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you very much. That is already very exciting. You just touched the tip of the iceberg, and I'm sure there's a lot to learn on that. We've had Philipp, Alex, and Siddharth. We've had a lot of questions already that came to us, as part of the event organization from a lot of members, because we never realized, we always knew that FinTech is very exciting. And of course, the association in Luxembourg is very exciting for FinTech because of the obvious advantages being a world leader there. But we never realized that there was so much interest, from a lot of people, from our members and guests, about FinTech. So what we've tried to do is that we've tried to cull out some of the questions, some of which are pretty common to the kind of questions that we had also discussed through email, between us, prior to the event. So the first question, for example, that came is that why is Luxembourg so attractive for international FinTech? So Alex, if you can answer, and then after that, if Philipp, if you can chip in with your few words on that. Alex?
Thank you, Rajiv. So from what I saw, I mean, Philipp will mention maybe the regulatory part, but first of all, he mentioned something very interesting, is innovation. So we have a regulator that has an innovation team, and I think we had maybe 2 regulators in Europe who have an innovation team dedicated to fintechs. It's us and in London, the FCA. When a fintech is coming from abroad to Luxembourg, the first thing I do is take them by the hand and go see the regulator to explain the business. So on the compliance side, the regulator understands and can advise. And most entrepreneurs are afraid because they say, I didn't done nothing wrong yet. Why should I see the regulator, meet the regulator? But that's the beauty of Luxembourg. The regulator is not here to beat you with a stick. It's here to offer you a nice coffee and have a conversation with you. So this is quite unique, I think, in Europe. The other stuff we discussed with, and Philipp already mentioned it, is the international scope. So when you're coming to Luxembourg, of course, you're going to have the whole financial industry that's at 5 minutes walk from you. But we are very international. So you've got direct connection with Belgium, Germany, Spain, France, London, even due to Brexit, we still have connection with London. So when you come to Luxembourg, it's the perfect gateway to Europe. So that's very important to understand. And maybe the third thing I want to mention is language, English. I'm not Luxembourgish, I speak English. We run business in English at the LhoFT. We have an international team. You don't have to learn French, even a French-speaking guy. You don't have to learn German, Dutch. So you can, from day one, run your business, talk with the regulator, have clients without any problem on the language and the cultural side. And the last thing maybe that's important for some people is the quality of life. Yeah, Luxembourg is a bit more expensive than Eastern Europe, but it's safe. Everybody speaks on average 4 languages, so your kids will speak 3 languages at least before hitting 4 years old. So all those aspects are more, let's say, familial and personal are also very important when you're considering moving and doing business in Europe. And I will stop there. Maybe Philipp will have also other on more on the business side, but yeah. Philipp?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Quality of life is certainly something not everybody coming here is aware about, but most of the people coming to Luxembourg to live for a certain period of time tend to stay in Luxembourg. Myself, my father of German origin came in the 70s. I grew up here, and both my parents and myself, we stayed in Luxembourg, and mainly because of the quality of life, because it's a tremendous advantage to be a part of an international community, which Luxembourg truly is. Another thing to add to Alex's explanation is certainly the ecosystem we have managed to build up over almost a century now, which is a complete ecosystem where, might it be asset managers or banks or investors or corporate clients, they can find all the advice, all the support they need in order to conduct their international business. And again, our multi-jurisdictional expertise, knowing how other countries are functioning, what the regulation in this different country is, makes it for our international clientele very easy to conduct business out of Luxembourg.
Great. So you know, when I see the summarization from what you and Alex have mentioned, Philipp, so innovation, the great regulator support, connectivity and language, of course, and the quality of life, and then above all, the great ecosystem that you provide, and that makes it so attractive, you know, not just for any business, but also in particular for the international fintech. Great.
Maybe one more thing, if I may, Rajiv, mention. It's something that we don't really share, but people are feeling it, is the trust. You know, in business, trust, I think, is the most important element. And by coming to Luxembourg, we have fintechs from France, from Germany, from Eastern Europe, from Nordics. They're all moving in Luxembourg for the European headquarters. And I'm always surprised why a French would move to Luxembourg to do business with Germany or Eastern Europe or with South Europe. But for cultural and historical reasons, it's very difficult for those fintechs to move to other countries. But by coming to Luxembourg, we are seen as the Switzerland of business in Europe. So we are very neutral, and we do business with everybody, and everybody wants to do business with Luxembourg. So because everybody trusts Luxembourg, everybody trusts the Luxembourg regulator, the Luxembourg financial industry. So trust is a trademark when you are coming to Luxembourg that you're going to send towards Europe, in fact. So maybe that's the last point. Sorry for that, but I think it's important.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Sid, I have a question to you. You know, with your knowledge, especially about the Indian ecosystem also, you know, we have today 500 million internet users in India, or plus more than that also. So a great amount of internet penetration has taken place in the last 1 decade, in the last 15 years. And we all understand we graduate at some point of time also from 4G to 5G. And that brings in itself, you know, a host of another set of innovation that will probably be set up in the future. We also have some marquee startups in India also. I mean, in Paytm, MobiKwik, Policy Bazaar, PhonePe, and so many things. And particularly on the digital wallet, inclusive finance, and those kind of ecosystems, you know, because I think the mobile phones and the Indians' fingers, they seem to go just in sync with each other. So the Indians are pretty good in that, I think. Now, when you see all that, and particularly the initiative the government took on the Digital India initiative, whether it's the banking, the insurance, the travel, the tourism, everything at the click of your fingers. How do you see that for Luxembourg FinTech? What potential and challenges would they normally face if they were trying to enter India or to grow or to launch this thing? So that's the broad question that Sid for you.
Sure.
And maybe after you've spoken, Alex can also comment on that. Yeah.
Sure. So, it's a good question, Rajiv, and we can talk, and I can share numbers, and numbers speak for itself. I'm a number man from my qualification, so I love to talk numbers. See, you're right in the way India has grown so far. But if you look at the growth, it's primarily come from the tier 1 and tier 2 cities of India. The larger population, which is existing in tier 3, which is over 1 billion of population, is still trying to grapple with the basics of technology. It's still trying to grapple with basics of the innovated technology which you see in tier 1 and tier 2 cities of India. Coming to the numbers, there are over 60 million plus small and medium enterprises that have benefited from this kind of a run in fintech. If you talk of the numbers, some of the names that you used around the fintech space, you've seen close to $65 billion of digital payments that happened in value terms in 2019. From a growth perspective, again, pre-COVID numbers, but these are the official numbers which have been published by the government agencies, and I'm taking straight from there. The CAGR of fintechs in India from now till 2023 is expected to grow by 20%. The fintech software industry market for India is $2.4 billion. And that's the kind of volume we are talking about. It's not just the depth, it's the breadth that still remains untapped. And this is a potential opportunity for Luxembourg fintech and the innovation in Luxembourg to look at India more strategically and more aggressively than ever, because there's a lot of maturity which we see exists in Europe. And Luxembourg being at the core of financial services system, there's a lot of innovation that has already happened. There are new fintech companies which are already growing in India. But investments to us at CommSol would always follow innovation, and will always follow what we call as a precedence of doing business and ease of doing business. And this is an area which the government has taken significant strides to make India much more better in terms of doing business in India, the regulations, the startup regulation, the tax holidays which are being given to the fintechs and startups in India. These are some of the things that can always be leveraged upon. There are organizations, there are companies like us which help do the due diligence. So if some company based in Luxembourg wishes to come to India, there are multiple ways that you can look at. Either look at a growing mergers and acquisitions is what we expect at the desk. We expect a lot of mergers and acquisitions happen, a lot of consolidation happen in the next 5 years in financial technology space in India, as well as the investors coming together and helping mature this industry as well. There could be investment happening in Luxembourg, in Lux FinTech, where there could be diversification, there could be expansion plans where India could be looked at by the investors as a potential market, which, as I said, is largely untapped. We can look at some of the return on investment is close to around 29% expected, which is again a published number in this space in fintech startups. So if you look at where we stand, it's still not a saturated market. There could be private equity investments, and we help, again, as I said, as CommSol, we help clients identify the right assets. By assets, I mean the right companies and right organizations where investments could be made. We do a lot of due diligence for partners in Luxembourg. We do due diligence for partners in India to help them understand whether that's a space that you could get in. From a number perspective, if you look at some of the fintechs that have grown, have primarily been on 3 broader segments: the payment segment, which has seen over 400 plus startups, the lending segment, which has got over 360 plus startups, and the wealth tech segment, which is over 300 plus startups. And that's a larger composition from a segment perspective across the 2,100 fintechs that we are talking about. InsurTech is still not mature. The larger part of Luxembourg and what we've seen as a business which has grown, the insurance segment is quite mature. Is the InsurTech. It's largely occupied by either the aggregators, as what we see, or it could be by the software companies who offer API. But there's a lot that can happen in terms of blockchain technology, which is already mature in Luxembourg fintech. A lot can happen on the cyber security with KYC, AML, and the banks can use some of the advanced technologies of Luxembourg to establish with the central bank, with the regulators here, who are getting more and more conscious, more and more aware, and more rigid around some of the compliance related matters. And fintech is an area which is highly regulated, be it insurance sector, be it the financial sector, be it banking sector, be it capital markets. We are talking of a regulated environment. Unless and until you understand the regulations of India, which is a knowledge which I'm sure Alex would talk about, in his side of things. But understanding the Indian landscape is very important, and you need experts to help you get that knowledge and get that understanding of what the local regulations are doing, how they are changing the landscape and the ecosystem.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Excellent. Alex, would you like to give your comments, please?
That was very clear, and it was spot on. Thank you so much, Siddharth. Yes, I mean, in Luxembourg, when we created the LhoFT, the main industry was payment. It was always a traditional industry in Luxembourg. You have all those Amazon Pay, Alipay just moved into the LhoFT 3 months ago. But as I mentioned, the vision of our finance minister was developing a fintech hub that's not only focusing helping fintechs in payment, but also helping the financial sector. And see that you just mentioned RegTech. So we have a huge RegTech community today. I think it's one of the best in Europe. So those firms will be very interesting for them to discover more about the Indian landscape. We have, of course, cybersecurity, and linked to what Philipp mentioned, the fund industry. We have, I think, one of the biggest fund tech segment in Europe, in Luxembourg. All these robo-advisor, AI, most of them are based in Luxembourg, and they do business worldwide. I'm coming back to a question, if you allow me, Rajiv, from Hubert, who asked us if we have a partner in India. Not yet. So we work with 26 fintech hubs all over the world. 6 of them are based in Asia, but none in India yet. So I would be happy to find any kind of collaboration, of course. We do have one fintech. So we have our member, CommSol, who is also based in India, but we have one fintech from the LhoFT, is Ibiza. So they are in financial inclusion. They provide satellites data to the insurance sector in Africa and in India today. And why I'm mentioning them is Luxembourg is one of the best place for financial inclusion. It sounds strange because we are the richest country in the world, but we run already 3 acceleration programs for fintechs from Africa. It's called Catapult Africa, catapult.lu. If you want to learn more, go on the website. So what we do is we take 15 fintechs from Africa every year. We bring them to Luxembourg for 1 week. We do the acceleration program for them. We connect them with the funds because we are the centerpiece, correct me if I'm wrong, Philipp, of the microfinance in the world now. Most of the funds are based in Luxembourg. So those fintechs can raise money and go back to the country and thrive. And that's what they do most of the time. By the way, so that's financial inclusion. It's something that's quite dear to us. So that could be interesting to explore more with India. That's it for me. Thank you.
Great, Alex. Just to flip that question in reverse, what would be the key challenges for establishing business in Luxembourg for an Indian fintech? And Philipp, if you can just take up that question and then followed with comments from Sid. So challenges for establishing business in Luxembourg for an Indian fintech. Are there challenges particularly that you see for an Indian fintech, or do you think that it should not be so much of a challenge so long as you got your homework well done?
Thank you, Rajiv. Well, I think my answer would be a link to what Siddharth said. We are currently in a process of understanding the Indian fintech landscape, and I think this is a mutual process. I think also people in India mostly also try to understand the European and the Luxembourgish fintech landscape that goes from a cultural perspective to regulatory perspective, an ecosystem perspective. So I think we are in the process of building up a relationship of mutual understanding, which is at a certain stage for some sectors. For example, we heard His Excellency, Mr. Ambassador Kugener, speaking about the capital markets and the Luxembourg Stock Exchange, who has long-standing relationships with the capital markets in India. And there are other sectors who are in another stage for the time being. So, and I think when it comes to FinTech, I think we are in the process of building up relationship and trying to understand each other markets and each other infrastructures. And we are currently learning a lot from each other.
Thank you. Alex, any comments on that?
No, perfect.
I would like to add.
That's the process. That's the goal of this webinar, I guess. Learn from each other.
Yeah, and I would like to add there. So, you know, just taking a cue of where the Indian mindset is currently, right? It's highly domesticated. It's highly centric to the fact that there's so much of opportunity, which is felt opportunity in India itself, that Indian fintechs have not been so aggressive or so keen at this point of time to look for any other market right now. And that's what we have seen as the industry has been growing. So what we see as CommSol is that there's a significant underpenetration of and huge potential that the industry seems to have in India, which is not allowing them to look at markets outside of India. That's number one. Number two is we need to have more structured cross-border efforts and more structured collaborative efforts between the two countries in this space, especially when it comes to knowledge sharing, especially when it comes to identification of the right partners and strategic partners who can leverage on innovation, who can leverage on technology. Also look at identifying the right innovators. You would know and you would be aware that recently India has moved to the top 50. I mean, after so many years, we are talking about India moving to the top 50 of the WIPO world rankings. Just talks of the testimony that India is still growing. It's still at the cusp of that growth that we are talking about as a country, as a nation. If we were to really leverage on the expertise which is already there in Luxembourg, well, it's a right time and right opportunity of cross-border partnership, cross-border penetration, looking at newer markets, looking at where Indian technology can probably help Luxembourg and vice versa, which is a fairly large and larger potential we see as CommSol. Lastly, but not least, as I said, not just the awareness, but in fact more and more marketing that is required. More and more awareness of the regulations. You talk of CSSF in Luxembourg, the kind of regulations that we are talking, and we are seeing at CSSF, the kind of regulations we are seeing with SEBI and with RBI and with IRDA in India. There has to be a lot of awareness for technology to get built. And that only comes with a lot of interactions such as these that are happening right now, more formats and partnerships with foundations like LhoFT, Lux for Innovation, Lux for Finance, with BLBA, and we see that if that is placed at the right time, then it could usher and we could play a key catalyst role in making sure that the agenda is met. That's my take. If I were to look at Luxembourg, then this is how I look at getting into Luxembourg and inviting Luxembourg partners to come to India.
Thank you so much, Siddharth. That's very well said. We will take a couple of questions from the audience, but I just want to mention that obviously in the interest of time, since we limit the number of questions, but nobody should get disappointed, because if your questions do not get answered today, and if you have questions, then please direct it to Preeti, and we will filter all those questions to either Siddharth or Philipp or Alex. And I'm sure, they'll be very happy to revert back later on with their replies on any particular questions, which remain unanswered today. So at the moment, I have one question from KS Aluwalia and then one from Amit Mittal. KS, would you like to come in and say your question?
Yeah, thank you. It was, I think I love this session. I have a very specific question. our risk appetite index in India has dropped down from 49 to 35, and it's expected to go down to 25, which opens up about 6 billion new investments which can currently come in India in such a even in the present landscape. So how do we leverage this? India is an economy which is going to grow for the next about 15 years. Whatever I said, we actually have a shortage of everything. So what we need is basic infra. The infra itself needs about $3 trillion. So how do we manage all this? I think it's a great opportunity for both the India and the other people to collaborate.
Siddharth, would you like to briefly answer?
Yeah, sure. So, investments, sir, thank you very much for that question. So investments will always come where there is value, and where there's value proposition, there is a return on investment on that particular investment that we look at. And primarily where we've seen likes of a Berkshire Hathaway coming into India, we've seen PayPal investing very hugely into the fintech space. We've seen Visa, MasterCard investing very hugely on the cards domain, on the payment side. Recently, about 2 weeks back, we have seen American Express partner with IIT in Madras, in Chennai, with regards to setting up a digital laboratory for American Express. We've seen Alibaba and Temasek and SoftBanks of the world that have come into India over the last 5 years, and they have become very aggressive. Particularly when you talk about the potential and the risk factor, obviously we are talking about a situation which is unprecedented on account of COVID. It's unprecedented with regards to the risk factor. We'll see some of the startups burn out in the next 6 to 18 months. But having said, the value proposition will never die down. The growth potential and the kind of need, the base that we talk about, the investors look at what the valuations which exist over the period of next 5 years. It's like a round robin. If you talk of last 1 year of investment in Series G funding, right? In the last 1 year, we've seen over $2 billion come into Series G. Right? We are not even talking of the seed or angel. We are not talking about the A, B, C, D, E, F, right? We are talking of G funding coming into India is massive. And that's only because there's a round robin that's happening in the investor community. There will be certain things which people would want to occupy the seats faster than the rest. Eventually, if we see the right technology come at the right time, and the timing is very important. If we see the right organizations embracing the India INC of what we call embracing the right technology, right, which is existing, if not in India, in Belgium, in Luxembourg, in Europe, in UK, we see that the value will obviously, follow, and the investments will follow that value. So I won't be able to put a number to that particular, valuation or the potential opportunity from where we stand today. We are still as nations, we are trying to balance out things. We are trying to see how, what is going to be the post-corona impact on many things as we open into 2021. So the plans have begun with our clients that we see where they are looking at transformation projects getting in, and it's been put into the budgets and into the plan. So we'll see that grow from here on. But you're right, there's a lot of depth, and there's a lot of depth which is also uncatered. And as I mentioned, the tier 3 that we are talking about, which is more than 1 billion population, has not been addressed, to the extent. And if fintechs in Luxembourg were to look at this massive population and consumption opportunity, the valuations will follow. And even if you're looking at investments coming into Luxembourg and routing via Luxembourg into India through some mergers, acquisitions, through private equity, through getting and catering to picking up some stake in the existing fintech space, I think the wealth tech industry will grow. By the way, the RegTech industry that we are talking about, there are only close to 58 RegTech companies that we are talking about in India. I mean, imagine the kind of space that we have on regulations, but the technologies are not that advanced. We are looking at only 100 plus insurtech businesses in India, right? And most of them, if you look at it, 32% of it are aggregators. You have the likes of a Policy Bazaar and stuff like that, right? So they are aggregators, but they may not necessarily be IoTs, right? You wouldn't have Internet of Things. You would not see claims processing. You will not see underwriters on the insure technology space that you see in in developed European markets. And this is an area where we see, as CommSol, we see there is a huge potential for us to partner, bring down that intelligence and expertise, because insurance we see in the next 5 years and next 10 years to grow massively in India. We see that space to grow. We see the asset management industry to, double up in the next 5 to 10, 5 years, if not 10, because, the kind of product distribution, a classic case, right, where product distribution and financial product distribution, which is happening very, very fast in some of the countries, which are being driven by Luxembourg FinTech, like the funds DLT that we are talking about. That technology may not probably be there right now, but government is trying to embrace blockchain, is trying to embrace some of the cyber security and some of the technologies on FinTech to ease out the onboarding and distribution power, at the same time reduce the cost and make sure that the circulation of financial products eases up. So huge potential, you are right. Risk, well, people are very conservative across the globe right now. If you ask any big tier 1 bank on NASDAQ, they are very conservative at this point of time. Some of the clients we speak are conservative in 2020, but yes, it's transformation is bound to happen. That's not going to go away from the world.
Thank you, Siddharth. And I'm sure after 2020 we will have 2021 that will follow on, which will be hopefully better. I have maybe the final question from Amit. Amit, do you have the question? And if you can kindly keep it short and direct it to Philipp or Alex, if that's a question.
Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you, panelists. Yeah. I have a question for Philipp and Alex, but I saw that they have just put their email IDs there, and probably they can circulate it. I wanted to know about Alex mentioned about one incubation facilities that they offer at Lux House of FinTech. And he also talked about public and private partnerships. So what are the rules to qualify and what are the benefits? I mean, and how can they be really beneficial to us, the Indian FinTech? This is, more information that I would like to have from them. Sure. But it can come as an email or a follow-on thing.
I'm going to be very, very, very short. I'm going to tell you what's the condition to come to the LhoFT, and then I will let Philipp tell you what's the condition for him connecting with you with the right people. Coming to the LhoFT is you have to bring with some innovation, some interesting technology. And this technology must add value to the financial ecosystem, be it for the other fintechs or be it for the financial actors, be it the bank, the insurance, and the asset managers. So that's what we're going to look is how innovative is your technology. And because what we don't want is to waste your time. So if your technology doesn't make sense for Luxembourg or for Europe, we won't waste your time. But if it's interesting, then we're going to make sure that we help you as much as we can. And I'm pretty sure that we're going to do that, because if you ask this question, it means you have something interesting to show for. And I will let maybe Philipp mention how LhoFT is doing the introduction to other financial actors in Luxembourg.
Sure. Yes, so to build up on that, what Alex said. So indeed, we have as I told you, an ecosystem of professionals, and we try to reinforce it. And this is why what Alex calls, it has to make sense. And so we have been driven off by, we have been starting by payments, but we have been very quick in identifying the opportunities we have to make our financial center stronger. This is why we have diversified into FinTech and into RegTech. So and we are trying to use FinTech as a catalyzer to strengthen our financial center indeed. And if you come with this idea, and if you somehow manage to propose us a solution that manages to make this happen, Luxembourg for Finance especially is there to open doors and to connect you to the right people and to the right businesses that help you to develop and make your idea a success.
I mean, in Luxembourg, you're going to find the most helpful people you will find all over Europe. Believe me that. And everybody is collaborating, as Philipp mentioned earlier.
I can confirm that.
Yeah. I can vouch for that, Alex. I have stayed in Belgium 6 years, used to go to Luxembourg almost every month, and I can vouch for you that that it's one of the best countries, from every respect. It's been wonderful and great to talk to such an esteemed set of speakers and the panel, and I really thank every one of you.
Rajiv, just a small question for my CA brother said, if you allow me, 2 or 3 more minutes. I said a small question to my CA brother said, if you allow me 3 minutes max, if it's possible, and everyone agrees.
Yeah, okay, go ahead, please.
So, I mean, Siddharth, you talked about technology, the Indian situation, you are well aware of the things. We are sitting in a very peculiar situation. I mean, one side, we are talking of economic recession due to lockdown, due to demand shrinkage. I mean, every business model has been challenged and probably renewed or replaced with a new model, especially distribution and supply chain, which I follow vigorously. I see is completely going through an overall process. On the other hand, with the stock market across the world are rising and booming, I don't know the reason. And when I talk of fintech, we know blockchain, AML, cryptocurrency, which India government or Indian businesses have yet to hear about. I mean, blockchain is there for 2 years, but I'm sure if we just do a scan in all the eminent economists also, hardly 1% would be aware how actually blockchain is working or functioning. So what I see of fintech as of now in India is more like a distribution aggregator, or you rightly said, I mean, you hit at this thing, right technology at the right time. So can you just mention or give a peek into what is the right technology that you're referring, which could help India and which could be collaborated with Luxembourg in one way or the another? I mean, you mentioned one field, that's insurance. I mean, claim processing and all that, but that's again working out a new model of doing the thing or processing the things. Over to you.
Sure. So thanks, Anand. I'll be very quick on that, right? Because this question requires a lot of elaborative conversation for the audience. But quickly touch on various different facets of financial sector. You touched upon insurance, which is driven by IRDA. It has its own rules of the game. If you talk of capital markets, it's been driven by SEBI. It's got its own rules of the game. India is still not open. RBI is still not open on neo-banking, right? And that is something which sooner or later, I would see, and next 5 years, neo-banking will start booming in India. There are already some players which are existing, handful of them though at this point of time, but neo-banking is not there in India right now. That's one technology I see we can leverage from Luxembourg in near future. Every aspect of asset management, be it decision-making on the algorithmic technology, be it decision-making based on certain facets of machine learning technologies, be it artificial intelligence, and there are companies which are springing. We are seeing that happen. We are seeing 42% of the overall fintechs in India residing in only 2 cities, which is Mumbai and Bangalore. And we see that because of the knowledge which exists in capital markets in India, and because Bangalore has predominantly been a technology hub for India, we see the polarization only restricted to these 2 cities and catering majorly to Mumbai and Delhi. But the tier 3, where the financial inclusion is one part, where Aadhaar and UIDAI plays a very key role and plays an important role for identification to distribution, using UIDAI as part of the India Stack initiative back in 2009 is still not that mature. We talked of blockchain technology, we talked of cryptocurrency being opened up by the Supreme Court in India, but the acceptance and awareness is still not there. Whereas cryptocurrencies in Europe is far more advanced and far more accepted and mature. That's one technology which should probably see some growth in the next 5 years to come. We see artificial intelligence come in, where certain payment gateways would probably start looking at artificial intelligence from usability perspective. We see a lot of cyber security related norms opened up. Anti-money laundering is one area where India has been, I won't say relaxed, but it's not as stringent as Luxembourg is not as stringent as the developed markets is, from a viewpoint of regulatory norms and regulatory controls and penalties, which is why, the global markets look at emerging markets in a very different lens. SEBI and RBI getting very stringent and very related norms. That's one area where financial services and the fintechs have not been probably one technology that we can leverage from Luxembourg and bring down answers on a broad level, top 5 that comes to my mind.
Okay. Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you very much. And finally, you've been a wonderful panel. And finally, I request Ignace Chakravarty to give his closing remarks and the word of thanks. Just to mention, Ignace is the president of IBLCCI based at Mumbai. And he is also a partner at Deloitte in India. Ignace, over to you. Apologize, he took a bit of time. Please go ahead.
That's no problem at all. And thank you so much, Rajiv. I'll start by thanking His Excellency, Jean-Claude Kugener, Ambassador of Luxembourg to India, esteemed panel members, Rajiv, yourself, Ignace, and all my other dear friends at BLBA, and ladies and gentlemen on the call today. On behalf of the Indo-Belgian-Luxembourg Chamber of Commerce and Industry, my privilege to provide the closing remarks and sincere vote of thanks to all participants. I found the discussion today extremely engrossing, touching upon the right points, and clearly something comes out in terms of message. First, industries are permanently evolving, but incremental change is hardly noticed. Today, if you look at the fintech surge around the world, it is absolutely without doubt that Luxembourg is one of the leaders of this movement. And besides IoT, Sid mentioned, blockchain, machine learning techniques, the fact that there are digital investment platforms, P2P lending, and various facets of fintech technology that is again driven largely by Luxembourg. With over 140 banks, more than 2,000 ICT firms, Europe's largest hub for investment funds, again, Luxembourg Financial Center, as we very well know, it represents a significant market for fintech companies. And I'm sure a lot of the fintech players in India that I speak with look forward to at least having a presence in Luxembourg, if not starting some conversation from a business perspective as far as Luxembourg is concerned. There is a lot more I can speak about Luxembourg, but I'd also like to touch a little bit about what Siddharth mentioned, which I found again extremely interesting. If you look at the fintech sector in India, it is largely at the nascent stage. 2 years back, post demonetization, the growth rate was 800% for obvious reasons. Those have been consolidated. There are a large number of initiatives that the government had run, and these initiatives are not just mobile wallets, PPI, merchant payments, or POS services, cryptos, but specifically, if you go into some of the initiatives, UPI 2, the Bharat bill payment system, contactless cards, BHIM, USSD, Aadhaar-enabled payment that Siddharth spoke about. Some have been successful, some have not. And a lot of this has to do with having a collaborative infrastructure which allows for such programs to be successful. And I do see these are areas where Luxembourg comes in. Luxembourg has the technology, Luxembourg has the expertise, if I may, and India, largely a domestic market with 1.3 billion consumers, really has the market where all these technologies can shine. So clearly, from a synergy perspective, there is a lot that yet needs to be done. Firstly, I'd like to thank His Excellency, Ambassador, he provided the background history of the bilateral relations of our two nations. The statistics His Excellency presented showed that the relation is only getting better and closer. I'm also grateful to Philipp in bringing out the advantages of Luxembourg in a succinct manner. It was quite clear from Philipp's introduction that not only is Luxembourg a hub for fintech, as we all recognize, but the financial center regime is clearly recognized for the benefits it provides globally, as well as importantly, the ecosystem it creates for international business. And I'm sure a lot of the players in India who are focused on Luxembourg will find that of tremendous benefit. I would also like to thank Alex for bringing out a point which is often unsaid, and that is the regulatory needs. It was extremely heartening, Alex, to note, and this is, I must compliment you because this is something I do not hear in many webinars or conferences of this sort. That is, regulators are not someone to be scared of or afraid of, but perhaps someone to sit down and have a coffee with and build confidence. Siddharth, thank you for bringing out the features of the Indian fintech sector, providing the details of the financial inclusion initiative. I wholeheartedly agree with a lot of your observations. I agree that there is a mindset change that we've seen in the last 2 years, but it needs further focus and a lot more growth. I'm sure there is a huge amount of opportunity that we see that exists. And even if you look at the first quarter of 2020, Given the adverse economic environment, this sector has shown that important deals have taken place, and there has been, no doubt about that, good financial growth. Finally, I'd like to take this opportunity to place on record my hearty thanks to Ignace and for his introduction, and Rajiv, particularly you, for wonderfully moderating, as I mentioned, a very, very engrossing session. My sincere appreciation to BLBA in providing the perfect platform, support, and guidance in organizing this very important and engrossing event. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. We bring this program to an end, and you know, as Ignace has said, Ignace said it so well, and I think we should have. I will, of course, Ignace and I will discuss with Ignace, but I think, and also we will take His Excellency into confidence. We should have a follow-up event, maybe 6 months down the road, you know, or 8 months down the road, on once again on the same thing, you know, and that will probably be in happier circumstance with the COVID crisis a little bit more abated. So with that, you know, we bring to an end this particular event. Amit, is there anything else, or shall we call it a day?
No, that's okay, Raj. I can end this meeting. So goodbye, everyone.
May I just briefly say a last word?
Yes, please. Yes.
Sorry, President. Thank you all very much for this extremely informative, extremely interesting webinar. I learned a lot this afternoon. Thanks to all the panelists, and also thank you very much for Jenny Hallen-Hedberg and as well the BLBA for organizing this. It was a very good webinar, highly informative, and looking forward to our cooperation, not only with the BLBA, but also in Mumbai with Anis and his colleagues. Thank you, and sunny greetings from Delhi to Luxembourg.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Keep